Hello, once again, welcome to Live Stream Insiders, live from London, live from Dublin on, well, what is a Sunday night here in the UK and Ireland, and it is the 12th of March 2017. My name is Peter Stewart, this is Krishna Day, and together we are Live Stream Insiders. Welcome to episode 74.
Where does the time go to, Peter? I really don't know. Yet another week has passed. What we have in store for you, lots of things. We're going to be talking about some new measures that Facebook's been taking in terms of particularly around suicide prevention. We're going to look at live streaming in China. We know that we actually have some people actually watching us over there as well, so they might want to pop in and give us their thoughts and ideas. And one that you don't know about, Peter, because I haven't even had a chance to tell you about this, just before we went on air, a new mobile app. I just might mention that at the end of the show. That's just some of the things that we've got coming up for you in the Live Stream Insiders. Our goal is to bring you the latest news, technology, tips, and ideas, including case studies, and we have some of them for you as well today in just 30 minutes. Hence, Peter sounded the bell off. So, Peter, over to you for our first story.
And you know what? I did the bell, but I didn't do the clock. Dear oh dear, so we'll have to finish a minute early. We'll have to finish a minute early. I was disturbed because, you know, I'm writing a book. 19 seconds ago, Manycam got in touch to say, yes, of course we can help you out. So they're friends of the show. We've spoken about them before, and it's fantastic news that they're going to be involved with the book as well. Let's go from that. Let's go from a little bit of levity to a serious situation, because worldwide there is a suicide attempt every 40 seconds. And, you know, suicide is the second leading cause of death among people 15 to 29 years old. It's a very serious situation, as you can tell from those statistics. And it's why the Facebook team, who, let's face it, have been criticised in the past about some of the streams that they've not pulled or have pulled, either too late or too early, they've decided to get involved and to have part of the Facebook Live team to recognise those kinds of streams from people who are likely to be at risk of harming themselves. They have announced a new tool which will provide support to people who may be at risk of taking their own lives. So this is how it works. Let's say that you are watching a friend or a colleague stream something via Facebook Live, and they say something which concerns you, which worries you, which makes the hairs on the back of your neck kind of stand up, and you get altogether a little bit concerned. Well, now you'll be able to, as they say, as the Four Tops said, reach out to that person and report that video to the Facebook team, and then they in turn will be able to provide a set of resources to that person while they are streaming live. It will appear in their feed that they will be able to see. And those resources include, as I say, contacting that friend and also giving some details of helplines and some suggested reading, which hopefully will be able to see them through those difficult times. You know what? Some people, Krishna, say that Facebook should simply cut off those live streams if someone is in danger of hurting themselves, but they haven't done this by themselves. They've actually been working with a couple of well-recognised charities and support groups in this particular field, organisations like the Crisis Text Line, the National Eating Disorder Association, and also the National Suicide Prevention Lifelines. They've been working in conjunction with those organisations to try and give the best possible advice at the best possible time. And also, intriguingly, they're also utilising artificial intelligence and pattern recognition is what they're calling it, based on previously reported posts by identifiable people who may be in that kind of at-risk group. And if the pattern recognition tool flags a post up, then it's actually going to be real life human beings, the Facebook community operations team, who will review what is being broadcast live at that time and then press that button to send those resources through to that person if they deem it to be necessary and potentially of use. So it's not often we start with such a serious issue, but I thought that was worth flagging up, because even though that was launched just over a week ago, in fact, I've only seen it reported in one place. And it strikes me that there is an increasing amount of publicity and marketing and discussion, certainly here in the UK, and I'm sure in Ireland as well, about mental health. Not only the money that goes towards it, but recognising the factors to do with mental health. And a criticism of somebody a week or 10 days ago in the public eye that said that mental health wasn't really a problem. It wasn't really a health problem, like, your arm falling off or the big C, that it wasn't really an issue. It wasn't really a health issue. Whereas, of course, it most certainly is, and it pervades all sorts of society. And, of course, being a hidden problem to a certain extent, like some other health issues, of course, it doesn't tend to be perhaps sexy enough to have awareness and to have money sent in its direction. So I think that is a really good initiative by Facebook that they've done that. They have been criticised in the past for some of the problems they've come across about cutting off streams, as I say, either too early or too late. And I think that's certainly a step in the right direction, and they should be applauded for that. If you want to read more, TechCrunch.com and do a little bit of a search for Facebook, and they're bringing suicide prevention tools to live and also to Messenger as well. So well done to Mark and the team.
Yeah, we don't often start with that kind of a story, do we, Peter? But I think it's such an important one. It was important to give people a little bit of an understanding of that, particularly because we know not everybody can stay for the full show. The second thing I wanted to say associated with that is, remember, all of the links that we have are already curated for you. So if you look at the notes associated with the show, you'll be able to find all the links for today's show, plus many others besides. And in fact, that just gives me a time to actually reference the fact that we had somebody reach out to us this week. And it was a really interesting perspective that they gave us about the show, about what they're finding helpful. But they suggested a tool that we might look at, an alternative tool for curation, which then sent me off in a little rabbit hole. And I actually spent probably a day researching tools. So watch this space. We may find another better way to actually share some of the links that we've got for you. But as you know, all of the links for all of the episodes that we've been doing in the last number of months, and we've been going here for about 1.5 years now, are actually all there for you. Second thing is a big hello to those of you who met me this week in the Professional Speakers Association in Manchester, in the northwest of England. It was my university town, so it was lovely to be back there. So if you're here as a result of being on that program or those workshops, welcome. And one of the things about professional speakers is that actually they very often are doing live streams for events. And this is a tool that we've talked about before that you might be interested in, but they've actually released an update. So what we're talking about today is a camera called Mevo. So some of you might already have a Mevo camera. If you do, then just leave a comment below. We'd love to know what your experience is. But Mevo is a product that, when it was first released, was available only for live streams to Facebook Live. And it's been out a number of months now. And I know there's a lot of people who really love it. And one of the benefits of it is actually the fact that you can set up different shots. So let's say you are a professional speaker, or to the point that we had before, where let's say you're an organization doing some awareness for, let's say, suicide prevention. You might actually say, well, how can I do this cost effectively with one camera? And so what you can do is you can actually get different screen shots available, different layouts available that you can then mix or have somebody mix for you very, very easily. So the interesting thing that's happened this week, and I saw this in a group I'm a member of for Mevo, is that they've actually now got a new integration. Now, I have to say, This is a paid integration, and it's going to be, I understand at the minute, $10 a month. And they're now introducing the fact that you can live stream to YouTube, to Periscope, to Twitch, as well as Facebook Live. So I know that's going to be a welcome addition to anybody who's invested in a Mevo camera. And it probably is going to put that product up the list for some people in terms of an investment. You can simulcast your stream. So what does that mean? You can actually go to multiple locations at the same time. But be aware, and they also said this in terms of in that communication and that I was reading, is that remember, Facebook does not officially allow you to actually simultaneously stream to Facebook Live and other locations. Well, we know that news organizations, such as the organization that Peter's in, actually will have streams to multiple locations, and we know other people are doing it, but they've got other ways that they do it. But so in terms of Mevo, and it's being owned by Livestream, a long-standing service in the way of live streaming for lots of organizations who've used it. So it was great that they were innovative with that. But because of their relationship with Facebook, you will not be able to simulcast to Facebook Live and other places. There are other ways that you can do that. Talk to us offline if you've got questions about it. But through the camera, Mevo camera, you cannot do that. The other thing that you can do is you can store your streams in the cloud and access them on demand on the live stream site. I think that's also interesting because for us, we are using BlueJeans, and one of the benefits that we have from BlueJeans is that we get a high quality recording of our live stream afterwards, which we can then do what we wish to do in terms of editing it, repurposing it. One of the things that we've been doing is putting it up on YouTube, so we've got another copy of it, keeping a copy as well, because one of the things I've noticed is the degrading of the quality of your video if you're just relying on Facebook these days. Unfortunately, it's not great if you go back and look at it a little while later, and certainly weeks later. So if you're looking for a high quality recording, then that's going to be one of the things that you can look at there. Of course, there's lots of other ways you can live stream, but it was really interesting to see that. And it certainly has, I think, made people rethink in terms of whether or not they want to be using that as a tool. I don't know if you've been using Mevo at all in your organization, Peter, in terms of for live streams that you guys have been doing for different events.
I haven't, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because you talked about streaming to various platforms at the same time. Of course, one way around that, of course, is to have two devices showing the same situation. And of course, you can get those fantastic tripods from places like Archon, for example, where you can actually have two devices on the same handle, on the same unit. So you could be doing a Facebook and a Periscope at exactly the same time. But that Mevo does look particularly interesting, doesn't it? I know you and I have had that on our wish list for quite a while, but I can't help thinking, it's been out, 6 or 8 months now? I can't help thinking that actually the resolution is going to be much better in the second generation. So if you are tempted to hold off for that, because of course, even though it says 4K on the box, that is 4K before it zooms in to where the sound is coming from, which gives you that cutaway on the camera, of course. And then so that makes that a lot of the actual stream that you get is not quite as clear as maybe that you may have anticipated. So let's move on to another of the top stories this week. And this article from Forbes.com. Before we talk about China, and before Krishna has got another example of a fantastic case study that we've been looking at this week, with 17 minutes to go on our live stream incisors show. And that article from Forbes.com was bringing up that thorny question again about quality over quantity of the viewers that you get. And the author of this particular article set up the scenario thus. He was saying that he was watching a Facebook live stream of reporters from The Vertical on the night before the NBA trade deadline, where they're buying and selling different players. And they said, the live stream I watched ran from 10 to 11 p.m. Eastern I was busy and only tuned in for the last 15 minutes, but while I was watching, I noticed there were 4,500 concurrent viewers on stream. And the author got to wondering, is 4,500 viewers a good number for a live stream or not? So they contacted several kind of experts in all of this, because they reckoned that, put alongside cable or traditional broadcast TV, 4,500 isn't an awful lot. But some of the experts they contacted said the number was amazing, huge, especially because of the time of night, and some said it was surprisingly small. So I'd love to know Krishna's view on this, and I'd love to know your view as well, if you want to drop it into the comments. What is the right answer for what is a good number for a live stream? Now, bearing in mind this was the NBA trade deadline, so there was a bit of jeopardy. It was going up to the wire. It was something a lot of people potentially were going to be interested in. It was quite late at night, but I don't know whether you know if you're watching, but there seems to be quite a different kind of bedtime in the United States as opposed to the UK and possibly Ireland as well. I think Americans tend to go to bed an hour or so later than the average time here in the UK. So 10 to 11, perhaps not that late. So is it a good number, 4,500? And as I say, I'd really love to know your views. And the argument, according to this article in Forbes.com, says, when does a niche broadcast for committed viewers, but a small number of them, actually reap rewards when you're actually trying to monetize your live stream? And the article goes on, the most important thing to remember about when thinking about what companies are going to make the most of the Facebook Live platform is that Facebook is going to ultimately make the most. It ain't going to be you. That's why they're buying the billboards to promote it. That's why they're paying the New York Times and others to start building content for it. Although, obviously, as we know, that's finishing in the next few days. The more people are putting video services on the platform, the more Facebook can make money off ads they place around them. So it strikes me that Facebook is only going to be putting adverts alongside streams that have got big numbers. Okay, the reaction and the comments, the engagement is going to come into that as well, but you could still have a lot of devoted viewers there aren't that many of them, but they are devoted, but they aren't necessarily commenting or giving those kind of reactions. And they pose this a couple of really big questions. Is a video viewer on the internet more valuable to an advertiser than a TV viewer because they can't be distracted by their phone? And I thought that was a fantastic observation. Of course, when you're actually watching something on your phone, you can't be distracted by going anywhere else if you've got that video playing. If you're watching TV, of course, you can be on your phone at the same time. So no one knows the answers to these questions, of course, and the people that figure out the answers first are those that are likely to be making the most money. So Krishna, I'm just kind of intrigued to know what you think about that whole quality versus quantity debate.
Well, I actually want to come to a lighter point that you mentioned first off, because remember the thing that we're now seeing is that I see this on desktop as well, is that if I'm watching on Facebook Live, and we talked about this a while back, that actually that video pops out and I can continue watching it. So the idea that we can't be multitasking is flawed now because I can multitask. I can carry on and do other things on Facebook, and actually I can watch that video because it pops out for that Facebook Live or that other video I'm watching.
Although not on iOS, as I understand. That is just available on Android, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've actually seen it on my desktop. I've seen it a lot on my desktop. So it depends on how we're all watching. And, let's not kid ourselves. We have multiple devices. I mean, if I look around my family, they could be sitting there with an iPad and they could be there with a phone as well. And certainly people are, multitasking and watching TV. So I'm not sure that one, it's an interesting idea. I think the only way you're going to know is if you research your audience. It's interesting, though, in terms of numbers. And it has a number of implications, doesn't it? So, for example, I really love the fact that we're seeing Ross and Stephen and Sabrina, and who else have I missed here? Patricia have all popped in, and Jen. Thank you so much for joining us. And numbers, we can see those numbers in real time about how many people are here. And of course, it's great when we actually see those numbers boost and we see people there. But I know for our show, we get a lot more views after the event as well. And it all depends on your objective. I also know, because those numbers are so transparent that people look, that we're actually very quick to actually make a judgment. I think I don't know whether it's cultural in terms of particularly UK, Ireland, the US. We're quite critical when we see that, oh, well, that show has only, or that live stream has only got, 500 views on it. What right have we got to criticize? Now, if you bring in the advertisers, particularly if you're going to do that as part of your business model, then that is going to be important, because those visibility of metrics is going to be important. And particularly that's why brands are working with influencers, because the influencers have got huge audiences and they've, a whole bunch of other things that they actually can bring and tell the stories in a different way. And that might be more interesting content. And I see a lot more of that happening. And therefore, that organizations are looking for those numbers. That's why you've got the branded content guidelines, and you've got, relationships that are being built. I think we are quite challenging of streams that we all see, saying, well, it's only that many numbers. And I think it all depends on what's the outcome. So would I rather have a small number of people watch, who find it of value, who find the stream of value, and who then take action if I had a particular call to action? So we were talking about a stream earlier on today at the beginning of the show, when it's actually you might be doing streams there, which is about awareness, and it's about public safety and health and so on. You might have another stream that you're doing, which is actually about volunteering. You want people to sign up to volunteer, or you want people to, make some donations. Or in other cases, if you're an organization, you might be looking at using a live stream for recruitment, or you might be looking at a live stream for communications, or you might be looking at it in terms of brand awareness or revenues. There are lots of different reasons. I still would like to have the right audience there. But boy, it would be nice to have the numbers too. I want my cake and to eat it.
Okay, thank you for all your comments. Thank you for watching. Let's crack on with 7 or 8 minutes to go. And let's go over to China, because live streaming in China, as we've mentioned before, although granted not for several months, is absolutely humongous. But it's not likely to be staying that way, because Chinese regulators have decided that they are going to crack down. They're going to tighten their oversight of the live streaming industry in that huge nation quite significantly. And all sorts of regulations going to be coming in effect. So that means that some of the smaller players are likely either to die or to be swallowed up by some of the industry leaders. They're certainly going to be squeezed quite significantly. It's all down to the China Ministry of Culture. And what they want to do is they're targeting vulgarity, obscenity, and wrong life values. Well, isn't that an interesting thought, after what we've spoken about in the past about what is sometimes on live streams? They're going to be targeting vulgarity, obscenity, and wrong life values, with half of the country's streaming site operators going to be randomly selected in the very first round of this particular crackdown. The State Administration of Radio, Film and Television say it's also down to them as well. They are China's main media censor body, and they pledged well before Christmas to intensify the supervision of the live streaming industry. So what does this mean? Why are we so interested in this? Because China's streaming industry is worth a whopping 1.45 to 2.18 billion US dollars a year. Online streaming platforms are going to have to obtain a license from the Chinese government before they're actually allowed to operate in the first place. That's before anyone joins up and goes live streaming of their own accord. Also, those platforms aren't going to allow hosts outside China to create channels and, in effect, broadcast going into China without, first of all, getting permission from the Chinese Ministry of Culture. Those different platforms have got to keep all of the recordings of all of those shows for 60 days, just in case there is a checkup. The streamers themselves have got to register with their real names, no made-up monikers. And also, this is quite interesting, conduct a self-censorship before uploading the video content and, perhaps unsurprisingly, provide healthy content and promote the socialist core values consciously. And of course, bearing in mind that a lot of those, perhaps unsurprising, especially that last one from the communist state that is China, even though its communist regime has relaxed quite a few rules and laws over the last few years. But what's going to be interesting is cracking down on having that recording of everything for 60 days, keeping it for 60 days in case someone knocks on the door and wants to check up on all of it, is of course going to increase that business cost for particularly those small platforms. China's total live broadcasting users grew by the end of last year to an absolutely huge amount. So any idea, Krishna, I'm going to throw this at you in case I don't know whether you read this article because it was down to me to be talking about it tonight. How many people? First of all, you'd have to know how many people in China. What percentage of the Chinese population has an account on a live streaming platform? What do you reckon? What percentage of China?
Oh gosh, this is a guess. 45%?
47%.
And that was a guess.
And that is 344 million human beings, which is an absolutely huge number. So even those small players are going to have a huge number of people signed up to that. But interesting times, that crackdown in China. And you may think, whatever you think about the regime in China, you may think that some of those regulations that they're bringing in perhaps might make things safer in other countries as well, were they to be brought in across Europe or America or elsewhere around the world. Love to know what you think. Krishna?
Well, I was just checking there to see if Tony is with us, because Tony's based in China and often joins us in. So I'm guessing you're going to catch us on the replay, Tony. You might want to leave a few comments in the stream just to let us know your thoughts in terms of these regulations that you and your organization has had to be dealing with. Anyway, just to say thanks to all the other people who've just joined us in terms of coming in to watch us live, and also to those of you who are watching us here on replay. A couple of quick things to finish off with. I'm actually going to sneak a third one in, because something that we actually talked about, a long time ago when it launched, was the fact that we actually have got an app called Anchor, which both Peter and I would be big advocates of audio. And Anchor have had a big update in terms of their app. So it's been a while since you looked at it, and you haven't looked at iOS, and you haven't looked at all the app updates this week. Take a look, some significant changes to Anchor, and also some things you need to be aware of about accessing your past audios as well, if you wish to do so. All details are there in the App Store for that update. But that comes on to why we are the live stream insiders, not the live video insiders. Anybody would think that we were kind of really had a super intelligence around the future. Well, actually, it's because live audio has been there for some time. And one of the things that we talked about earlier this year was live audio here on Facebook Live. So the quick case study we've got for you, and it's in the show notes, is about The Economist. And The Economist is a publication that many of you might have come across or know. And they have actually been doing some live audios on Facebook Live. So I actually got a quick image here for you, which I just want to pull up on screen. And I'm only sorry that I actually can't show you an animated GIF, because all you can see at the bottom is a sound wave. And what's interesting on this particular live stream that was back from February is you have an image, but actually the sound waves are actually going as the two people are speaking who are on that particular live audio stream on Facebook Live for The Economist. But let's look at some of the things we were talking about. And it goes back to the story that Peter had for us around numbers and what is a good set of numbers. So if we're worried about what we might have in terms of audience, just think how big The Economist is. I can't remember how many people follow their page, but the stream that they were talking about that was recent in this article was an audio from Nigeria discussing the country's state of leadership while its president had been absent for 6 weeks. The stream prompted 198 comments and had 150 shares and reached at peak 250 live listeners within the first few minutes, and it fell to 140 listeners for the remainder. So interesting that we've got those kind of numbers there, and you can go yourselves and have a look at the Economist page to say, well, what do we think of that? But the publisher said that is fairly consistent for other live audios, but the total reach was lower than average for that particular stream. And one of the things they said is there are many positives to draw from the Nigerian broadcast because it actually was a 30-minute discussion on a fairly niche subject that doesn't normally get broad coverage. And basically, it had people interested and engaged. So it all goes back to what we said before, isn't it? Context. What are our goals? What do we want? To be able to actually reach an audience and they can come back later. And the fact that The Economist is experimenting. Plus, we know that Facebook Live is pushing hard, or Facebook's pushing hard on audio. And the fact that in those markets, you know, the whole cost of data is something to be considered, or the devices that people are looking at. So live streaming audio actually takes up, a different amount, a lot less bandwidth in terms of for that, and therefore for a country like Nigeria, it's much more relevant. So I'd say watch this space. Really nice to see that kind of a case study in terms of there. And then my last one for you, just before I close out, Peter, you don't even know about this because I didn't even have a chance to share it with you. Just before we went on live, I got an invitation. So for those of you who don't like FOMO, who don't like fear of missing out, here's another app for you, which is available in the iOS App Store. And I'm sure it's in America and it's in the UK because I'm on the Irish App Store. And this app is called Glimpse. And the whole purpose of this live streaming app is about you can go live, you can decide who sees it in terms of family and friends, you can control it, and there's a replay for 48 hours. They're really looking for feedback. So if you've got the time and interest to go check it out and give them some feedback, I'm sure they'd like it. It did make me wonder, though, in terms of what would make that any different from me doing a private Facebook Live or a private Periscope just to a group. For example, we talked about last time, Peter, all the updates that Periscope have made in terms of groups. You know, we can do private live streams in those ways. And of course, you know, we can actually be, having group messages there on Messenger or any of the other apps. We haven't talked today about Facebook Day because it's not really live video, but I know that that's another thing to be careful of because, of course, anybody can see your Facebook Day, and it's not just you actually being able to share that to specific people. But for those of you who are interested in terms of actually exploring yet another app, then go and have a look at Glimpse in the iOS App Store today.
Okay, Krishna, thanks for that. And thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. Thank you for the loan of your eyes and your ears and your fingers as you've been messaging us over the last 30 minutes or so. If you're in London, I'm going to an event actually all about the app Musical.ly, which is going to be happening at the Google Workplace Centre that I know Krishna and I have both been to before. So that's going to be on Wednesday in London. So might see you there if you're watching this. Do come up and say hello. So that's all about the app Musical.ly. And Krishna, over to you to sign off.
I should say thank you. I don't know if he's still here, but to Ross Brand, who many of you will know of, who has a platform called Livestream Universe. He does an amazing job of actually showcasing and telling people about live streams that are going on. And he actually very often covers Livestream Insiders and is very generous. He puts a lot of time and attention into those promotions that he does, all in terms of on video as well. And I'm delighted that I'm actually going to be with him tomorrow, 11 o'clock my time. You've got a difference in time zone of just 4 hours in the US at the minute, because we aren't at daylight savings time. So if you don't know Ross, go over to Livestream Universe. He's got a wonderful archive of shows there, and I'm going to be one of the archives in the near future. So I'm really looking forward to that. But with that, we really need to be signing out and saying thank you so much, as always, everybody, for joining us. Remember, you can join us here on Facebook Live to be able to join us in real time, 7 p.m. That's every single Sunday, for 30 minutes of live video news that you can use, and live audio news, as we've talked about today. So thanks for myself, Krishna Day, and Peter Stewart for joining us here for Livestream Insiders.